Have you heard of Graves' disease? If not, don't worry because the topic of this presentation is going to be all about Graves' disease. Graves' disease is an autoimmune disease, which is when cells attack their own cells and tissues. Now you can imagine that's a very big problem and can lead to hyperthyroidism, which is when there's an overproduction of thyroid hormones. Let's have a look at how thyroid hormones are produced normally. Some of the important structures that need to be noted are the hypothalamus in the brain, below which is the pituitary gland consisting of the anterior and posterior lobes, and the thyroid gland, which is located at the front of the neck, just below the larynx. The hypothalamus secretes a hormone called thyroid-releasing hormone, or TRH, which stimulates the anterior pituitary gland to secrete thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH. Finally, this travels to the thyroid gland that has the receptors for the TSH. The binding of the TSH to the receptor on the thyroid gland stimulates the production and secretion of thyroid hormones called T3 and T4. The increase in T3 and T4 hormones will negatively feedback on the hypothalamus, telling it to stop producing TRH and the anterior pituitary gland to stop producing TSH, since there's enough T3 and T4 thyroid hormones. How does Graves' disease lead to overproduction of thyroid hormones? Some antibodies mimic TSH and bind to the thyroid TSH receptor on the thyroid and stimulate a release of T3 and T4 hormones. However, autoantibodies, which are antibodies that react with self-antigen, will still exist and bind to TSH receptors on the thyroid and stimulate unregulated overproduction of thyroid hormones T3 and T4, which causes the autoimmune disorder. How are autoantibodies produced? Within the lymph nodes, cells called antigen-presenting cells normally activate naive T cell in case of infection. Antigen-presenting cells may present TSH receptor-like antigens to T cell with the help of MHC class II molecules, which will activate the naive T cells. Naive T cells are those that have yet to encounter antigen within the lymph node. These autoreactive T cells activate B cells that produce TSH receptor autoantibodies that stimulate the TSH receptor instead of damaging it and act in a similar manner to TSH. So it leads to an overproduction of T3 and T4. What are some symptoms of Graves' disease? The overproduction of T3 and T4 give the following symptoms: heat intolerance, fatigue, weakness, enlarged thyroid gland called a goiter, increased metabolic rate, which leads to weight loss despite adequate nutrition, and more. What is the treatment for Graves' disease? Number 1, pharmaceutical therapy, which inhibits the thyroid peroxidase enzyme that helps with the synthesis of T3 and T4. Number 2, radioiodine therapy. Radioactive iodine can be taken and would cause it to decay into the element xenon and emit energy that destroys the surrounding thyroid tissue. And number 3, surgery, which consists of either a partial or a complete removal of the thyroid glands. Now you are well informed of what you need to know about Graves' disease. Thank you for listening.
Created using Powtoon.